Hey friends, welcome back to Your Enneagram Coach, the podcast. I'm Beth McCord, and if you're watching this on YouTube, which I hope you are, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. That would mean so much to us. This week, I am super excited to continue this current series where we're featuring our Director of Coaching, Adam Breckenridge, as he talks with some of our certified Enneagram coaches about the various thoughts and limiting beliefs that have held them back over time in being a certified Enneagram coach. So we're going to talk with a type 5 and a type 6 and a type 7 coach, and they're going to discuss with Adam what that negative self-talk looks like for their personality type and the steps that they have taken to overcome these limiting beliefs. You are going to be so blessed by hearing from them because all of us have limiting beliefs, right? But what does it look like to overcome it? Well, I can't wait for you to hear, so let's dive right in.
Well, hey there, friends. Welcome back to the show. I'm Adam Breckenridge, Director of Coaching at Your Enneagram Coach. And for the last couple of episodes, we have been talking about something known as imposter syndrome, which is this internal experience that you are an imposter. It's this voice that says you are an imposter. It's this kind of accusatory thing that says you're hiding something that you can't let others see. And it's this sense that you're a fraud. And there's often this fear associated with it that, it's only a matter of time before you're going to be exposed and others are going to find you out. One of my favorite terms for imposter syndrome is the term head trash. A common way this shows up is in the form of all kinds of stuff going on in your head, garbage going on in your mind, limiting beliefs, things, this narrative of I'm not competent enough, I don't have what it takes. Or sometimes the head trash shows up as negative self-talk. You're weak, you're fake, you're not enough, you don't deserve to be here, you don't belong, which is really the voice of shame. And however this shows up for you, one thing is certain: imposter syndrome, as we've said in the last couple of episodes, is a common human experience. It's not unique to certain Enneagram types. In fact, all 9 Enneagram types experience some form of limiting beliefs and negative self-talk that, if left unattended to, will knock us off our best path and keep us from becoming our best selves. Because fundamentally, really, it's the imposter part of us, this part of us that functionally keeps us from experiencing the love of God and from having the courage it takes to pursue what it is He's put in our heart to do. In last week's episode, you may have heard me quote Ayodaji Awoshika in his book, How to Overcome Imposter Syndrome. And I think he says it best. He says the imposter part of us is really, quote, a child in adult armor firing arrows at all your attempts to live. In other words, this is the part of you that is most likely holding you back, and the part that is most likely keeping you from living a wholehearted life. And so the question that we've been wrestling with in this little, kind of 3-part mini-series over the last few episodes is, how do I lead and care for this part of myself so that it doesn't keep me from becoming who I long to become and from doing what I long to do in this very short life that I have? And once again, to help us answer that question, I'm joined by a wonderful panel of certified Enneagram coaches. So joining me today are Joe Graham, Elizabeth Brennan, and Amy Wicks. Friends, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show. I think I want to start by having you just introduce yourself a little bit. So, the basics, like your type, family, where you live, what you do, anything you want to share. Joe, why don't you go first?
Good to be here again, Adam. So nice to meet all of you in this way. My name is Joe Graham. I identify as a type 5 in the Enneagram. I live in Holland, Michigan with my family, my wife Tiffany, my son Baxter, my daughter Penelope. We live on the lake shore. So I've served as a leader in a number of different organizations over the years, started my career with Young Life, and then found my way in the church world for over a decade, serving in some different roles, and then as an executive pastor for a multi-site church most recently, and got into the Enneagram as a way to develop leaders and to grow myself, and then ended up launching a coaching practice, which I've been at for about 4 years now. And I currently serve as the director of people and culture at a multi-campus senior community in our area, working on staff development, employee engagement, and organizational growth.
Man, Joe, thanks so much for sharing. Thanks for being here. Elizabeth, what about you?
Yes, I am Elizabeth Brennan. I'm a type 6 from the suburbs of Houston. We've lived here almost 2 years now. Been married to my husband for five years this June, and our daughter is just a little older than 2. I came to the Enneagram because I quit I was a teacher, elementary and middle school teacher for 6 years, and I quit teaching before my daughter was born, and just didn't know what I was doing. Like, felt lost, felt like I didn't have a career anymore, that I didn't have something to do except take care of this baby that didn't do anything else but need me all the time. And
Yes.
I didn't know who I was anymore. And God used the Enneagram to remind me that He made me with a purpose. He made me with a calling, and that the struggles I had weren't without purpose. And that's how I got into coaching, is I wanted to teach moms the same things, that the things that we hear as moms, that you have to do more and be better, but you're also doing too much. And so you have to stop doing too much, but you're not doing enough if you stop, are all lies. And God's already given us exactly what He needs us to do. And in an effort to support moms even more than just Enneagram coaching, I'm also getting my certification now as a potty training coach as well, because we've been on that journey.
Wow.
And it's not for the faint-hearted. And so I don't want to leave people alone in that and think that they have to be alone in that as well. So.
Oh, Elizabeth, that is fantastic. And I'm there's so many things I want to say. Gosh, as you're talking, I'm like, oh, I got to keep the episode on the rails, because what you're talking about, and Joe, the same with you. When you were talking about working with leaders, I'm like, I want to talk about that. Amy, let's talk about you a little bit. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, Jeff. Well, let's see. I'll start off with, I would say I'm a social.
Wait a minute. I'm going to have to stop you. I'm going to have to stop you right there, because I know Jeff McCullough heard it. You called me Jeff.
I did.
Are you thinking about Jeff? Wait a minute, though. Are you thinking about Jeff McCord? Because if so, he's going to be flattered.
He is. Please tell him that, because he always gets,
No, we're going to keep it in the episode. We'll just keep it in the episode.
I love it.
Yeah, it's not like Zoom where everyone's name is right there.
I know. Adam, I know Adam very well. We've had multiple conversations, and here I am calling him Jeff.
No, this is true. We do know each other well, so I'm not offended at that, because I know you know who I am. I mean, we're friends. But the thing that I think is beautiful about this is that, Jeff's name, I mean, I just love that he's getting some attention.
He is, and he needs it. So we're going to give him a shout out today. Lots of love to you, Jeff.
That's right. Much love.
I love it.
All right, continue.
Okay, let's see. All right, we'll start that again. Social 7, wing 8. But I don't know. There's still a lot of 6 in there. I'm a wife. I'm a mom. I'm an Enneagram coach for female entrepreneurs. Recently finished certification in marriage and family. So I get to dabble in lots of different types of coaching. And I now live in Kansas City, but I like to say I'm California born, ended up in the Midwest, then to the mountains, and now I'm back on a cul-de-sac in the Midwest, where it's actually pretty decent today, since we're talking about weather. It's not too bad, kind of rainy, spring. It's beautiful though. So, we've been here for 13 years, can't believe it, but we're finding our place here and raising kids and doing life. And just really grateful that I get to do what I do.
Yeah, well, we're really grateful for you and grateful that you're here today, Amy. So, Joe, you're a 5. Elizabeth, you're a type 6. Amy, you're a type 7. So you all make up the Head Triad within the centers of intelligence. 5s, 6s, and 7s are in the thinking center. You process and move into the world mostly out of your thoughts and your thought life. And you all share a common desire for security, which is a good thing. But there's also this imbalance in that desire for security that kind of shows up sometimes in this common emotional struggle that you all share with anxiety. So that has me curious to start, as we're talking about imposter syndrome or head trash, even that term. of calling it head trash. In the last 2 episodes, we've kind of talked somatically about where this imposter part of us lives, in the gut, in the heart. For you guys, do you find in your experience that this imposter syndrome is a part of you that lives in your head? Like, does it show up mostly as anxious thoughts, a busy mind? Can you speak to that, Amy? I'd love for you to kick us off.
Yeah, because it took me so long to figure out my Enneagram type, it's one of those things that now, really understanding that anxiety piece, I go, how did it take me so long? Because it's really evident. I'm very much in my head, and in a way where, because I'm extroverted by nature and kind of some of the typical 7 traits, people don't understand how much is actually going on behind here. That what they see is actually only this much. Family doesn't have like they get 20% of what's going on in there, because there's a swirl of ideas, there's a swirl of thoughts, and it's kind of one of those things. I don't think it ever turns off. In fact, I woke up at 2:30 this morning, no joke, not because of any physical thing. I immediately woke up and had a thought in my mind that led me to the feeling of pure anxiety. And that is, I forgot to order my kids' yearbooks. And I forgot to customize the pages. And I think they were due like at midnight, but it was 2:30 a.m. And so I immediately, I didn't even have any other feeling except for there was just like this thought. And so to me, that meant it must have just been working my mind, and it came up to enough of that consciousness where it woke me up. So anyway, it's an unfortunate example that I got to live today, but that's the reality. And then I couldn't go back to sleep because I'm like, my kids are going to hate me. I didn't finish the book. I didn't turn it in. They're not going to have a yearbook. And, they won't have all these precious memories from this year. And I went ahead and figured out a way to at least work on 1 yearbook. So I've been up for a long time already. You're definitely going to get some good information today. So there you go.
Oh, Amy, what a great example of how this works. Yeah. And I'm thankful that you got the yearbook situation all resolved.
We're almost there. Yeah.
Almost there. Yeah, Joe, what about you?
Well, Amy, I was also up early this morning.
Oh, not alone.
Sometimes that happens. And it I don't know other head types, but my experience is you wake up and your mind's instantly on. I don't have that in most mornings, I think, because of the way I've trained myself to kind of enter into the day. But if I wake up in the middle of the night, it's instantly on. And so I saw the email prep for this show and you used the word head trash, and I saw we were talking 5, 6, and 7. And then I said a word out loud that I won't say on the podcast, because that is our experience as the head type. It is my experience. Yeah. I recently heard that fear, another way to describe anxiety, is an emotion of the head, and that it isn't really happening, but to those of us in the head triad, it feels like it is. And I can attest to my own struggle with anxiety in terms of how it plays itself out. Part of it, which is really interesting right now, is because of the work I've been able to do with the wisdom of the Enneagram, I'm way more aware of my body and my emotions, where I used to bury my emotions a lot more, and I'm much more present. And so some of the new things I'm discovering about myself is, this is showing up in my body. Mm-hmm. And because I've known for so long it's in my head, and I've done the work to go, it can't only be in my head, it has to be in my heart, it has to be in my body. Mm-hmm. And so that is actually a wild trip to go through when you're starting to go, this anxiety does manifest itself in my body, even though I've been able to keep it in my head, or only experienced it in my head most of my life.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So much I want to say there, Joe. So we may have to grab a conversation offline, because I've been on a very, very similar journey. I've realized my body's kind of been, it will stay kind of in fight or flight mode, and I've only realized that the last few years of my life. So,
yeah, I've had this interesting experience lately where I've become way more in touch with my emotions. And I don't know what to do with that all the time now. I used to just be able to think my way through it, and now I'm like, no, I actually have to stay in this. And so
Yes.
And I wouldn't be there without the Enneagram.
Yeah, that's one of the most transformational pieces of fruit that the Enneagram gives us. Yeah, Elizabeth, you and I are both type 6s, but I'll let you answer for me. What about you? Tell me a little bit about how this imposter might or might not show up in anxious thoughts for you.
I think I described it to my mom one time as it's like I have a movie reel in my head, and it just spins and spins and spins, and when it runs out, it starts over again. And so that, like, when it's trying to do something new, it turns into, well, don't try too hard, because it could either be really amazing and that's a bad thing, or it could be really bad and that's a bad thing. And so maybe just only sort of try.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really hard to do well at something. Even when I want to do well at something, it's hard to convince myself to really do absolutely my best, because everything is always, well, it's not this isn't good enough, and this person won't like that, and there's just answering to the inner committee at all times.
Yeah. Yes.
Is a hard task.
Yes. Let me ask you this, Elizabeth. If you do something and it turns out to be really amazing, why does the imposter say, be careful about that? That's bad news too.
Because then people want more. And I don't always feel like I have more to give. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's fascinating about the imposter, because I don't know if this is a 6 thing, but to me, the imposter part of me will be it's this voice that will say, number one, it's kind of a fluke that you got here. You're a fraud. You don't really belong here. But then it'll turn around and also say you should have done better, and put this pressure on you to perform. So, yeah, guys, so insightful. I want us to continue to pay attention to this part of ourselves. I mean, that's what this whole episode is about, and we get a chance to help others, build a healthy relationship with this part of themselves. So, and that's kind of why you guys got into coaching. I mean, we could spend a ton of time talking about what motivated you to become an Enneagram coach, but I think you've already summed it up. Each of you have experienced the wisdom and transformation through this tool, and you want to turn around and give that to others. And so you want to make an impact in other people's lives and coach them toward becoming their best selves in Christ. And what a beautiful desire. And so you've all become coaches, and when we know that the journey to becoming an Enneagram coach is difficult. I mean, anything worth doing is challenging and requires sacrifice and effort, and it's always going to be a place where your head trash gets activated. So in my experience, that's the number one hurdle people have to overcome to become a certified Enneagram coach, or really pursue any dream or calling that they have. And so I'd love to hear from you guys in launching and leading your own coaching business. Can you describe what it's been like for you to walk through your own limiting beliefs, and both in launching and then currently still having to show up every day and walk through your own limiting beliefs just to become a coach? Joe, you want to kick us off on that?
Yeah, as you were talking imposter syndrome, it's that word security is interesting for us. We desire security as the Head Triad, but it's really because we're avoiding insecurity, right? And so I feel this interesting pull in that in terms of most aspects of my life, really. And in terms of starting a coaching business, like as a 5, I just kept calculating, okay, when do I push send on this email to tell people I'm doing this? Or when do I begin the conversation or send out a proposal? And as a 5, I desire to be competent and capable. And so what I've learned about myself is I usually show up with like 5 hours of content that I don't need. And one of my friends actually said to me, she goes, it's all in your head. You just need to show up and give it to us. And so that's some of my journey with teaching the Enneagram and coaching others with it. And my dream is to be in the coaching space full time at some point. I've always done it as a side project or internally where I've been serving. And so it's been really fun that I've had the ability and flexibility to do that. And it's kind of become a huge part of my life too. Was able to form a partnership with another Enneagram coach who got certified by YEC a few years ago. And so it is an act of vulnerability for folks who are overthinking things. And what I've learned now that, I still have imposter syndrome when I go to do a workshop or start with a new client. And I have to do the work of reminding myself of, you know how to do this. You know how to do this. And that vulnerability is the threshold of what's possible in coaching relationships. When someone is willing to invite you into that space, that's half the achievement, I think, in coaching. And you just have to start with affirming them for saying, you want to grow and you've asked me to help you grow. And we're going to figure out we're going to learn how to do that together. And so, that's a little bit of how I've gotten into coaching. It's been workshops, one-on-one coaching relationships, and then just launched an internal coaching program where I serve now, where we're offering it to any staff who want to grow at all levels. And so we're super excited about that because we got a couple hundred people on our team. And so I'm curious to see how that all shapes out too, and all the different roles that are in a healthcare organization that I now serve.
That's so cool.
Oh, such an exciting opportunity. I can't remember who said it. As you were talking, it reminded me of a line I heard years ago about sixes, where it was said that sixes are quick to forget past successes. So, for me, it would be this, no matter how many times I had coached someone successfully, or, preached a sermon, or done whatever, it could be anything. I would still show up. We would still have all this anxiety about doing it again. And there'd be this part of me that would think, you don't have what it takes. You don't know enough. You don't belong up there. You don't belong in that space. Like you're not, you're going to fail. And so I love that what I'm hearing you say is you've kind of, for lack of a better term, it sounds like parented that part of yourself by like kind of holding up the mirror a little bit and saying, hey, look, these people are asking me to do this. Like, that's confirmation. That's over half the battle, like you said. So I love that kind of gentleness, those gentle reminders that you're giving to that part of yourself. And it sounds like you've also had some healthy people that you trust in your life who have reminded you just do it. Like you have what it takes. So it's all in your head. Just show up and coach us. Elizabeth, what about you? How have you pushed through this head trash in order to do what you're doing?
I've allowed myself to go slowly. There's so much out there of like hustle culture and do more faster. And I started this journey when my daughter was only, I think, 10 months old. And we were in a new city and I didn't know anybody here. It was the middle of the pandemic, so I couldn't know anybody. We didn't even have a church home yet. And I didn't really know what it meant to own my own business either. I was a teacher. I just showed up to work and did whatever they told me. There wasn't a whole lot of, there was certainly initiative, but nothing required me to step out of the confines of my job description. And now I create my own job description. I was like, that's new. So just giving myself the grace to say it's okay to learn it first and then do it has actually been so helpful. Instead of like, well, if you don't go and make a bunch of mistakes first, and that's a good way for a lot of people to learn, but with a daughter and other responsibilities, that was not the way for me to learn this. So it's okay. Like I'm okay with having one client at a time. I'm okay with working on my website only if I don't have clients, like things like that.
It's so good. I'm taking notes for myself as you're talking. So when you talk about permission to slow down, I was just reminded that a great way for sixes to navigate their self-doubt is to embrace the journey. I think sometimes sixes are so hyper-focused on the destination because that's what anxiety is.
Yes.
Anxiety is about climbing into the future to get control of the destination. Whenever God is inviting us to walk with him on this journey. And what drives the six crazy, what drives anybody crazy, but what drives the six crazy is we don't have all the certainty we want to have on that journey, And so there can be this temptation and anxiety to speed up and race ahead and try to get everything answered and prepare for every possible scenario to get ahead and get control of that destination. But I love the wisdom that you're offering, Elizabeth, is to give yourself permission to slow down and to embrace the journey and to play the long game. One of my mentors has said to me many times over the years, it's a journey, not a quick trip. You don't have to be in a hurry to get there. You just have to be willing to go. So if I will open my hands and take baby steps, half steps, and trust God, that is a great way to encourage a 6 to navigate through all that head trash. Stop focusing on the destination and just look at where you are and take the right next step. It's good, Elizabeth. Thank you for sharing that. Amy, what about you?
Yeah, I was just kind of sitting here thinking about that. I'm like, oh yeah, I needed the slow message. I needed, confidence message. There's a lot of pieces, a lot of things that I needed. But one of the things that really was the reassurance piece. Like I needed reassurance that I had chosen the right thing because I was afraid to get stuck. I was afraid that I would be limited by choosing the Enneagram. I had grown up in the ministry, been a ministry leader for years, worked in that and did the motherhood thing and started home businesses and different things like that. A typical 7, done lots of things, worked coffee shops, done real estate, all the things, right? And so when I had begun my podcast and really online business, the Enneagram came in the midst of all of that, but I was afraid to fully embrace it as like my thing. Is this the tool that I'm going to use? Is this going to be, do I kind of give myself to all of that process? And does it fit with my beliefs? Can I also talk about Jesus in the Enneagram? Some people might hate me. All these different pieces. And so I kept looking for reassurance that it was going to be okay in the end, that I had chosen this and that I would really love it. And it could be a long-term decision because there was a lot at that point. 40 was on the horizon. I was like, I just want to choose something. I want to focus in. I want to like be all in on something instead of keep dabbling in all the different things. And so, honestly, a big part of that and part of building a business has grown my dependence on the Lord and getting my reassurance from Him, because I couldn't find it in anything else. Ultimately, I couldn't get that A-OK from, someone, even my husband, who's been all about supporting this. And he finally just said, you have to hear from the Lord. Is this the thing for you? Is this what you're supposed to do? And we both have confidence now. It's been over 4 years of doing all of this that we both go, oh man, this has been the thing where all of these different points along the way have really kind of amassed to allow me to be able to use the giftings and my experience and all of that to be the kind of coach that I am and to help so many people along the way where, but then ultimately too, in all of that, when you go back, okay, the Lord has really led me to this point and He's the one who's going to give me reassurance. Then every interaction, every client, every team training, it goes, okay, that was from the Lord and He's equipped me and called me to do it. And I'm so grateful.
Yeah. I want to point out that, it's funny, as a type 7, you said that I was afraid of having limits put on me. And I'm over here saying, of course you were. You didn't want the Enneagram to box you in and to place these limits on you. So the need in that fear is you needed assurance. And so that's normal and human. People are afraid. When we're afraid, we need reassurance. And I love that you're saying, and it's not a spiritualization. It's a reality. Like you went to the Lord with that and you said, hey, listen, I need some reassurance. And what's fascinating is that I'm curious if this was the case with you. Sometimes God might actually give us the assurance that we're asking for in terms of like, this is not going to be limiting. Sometimes He doesn't. He just assures us that He'll be with us in the journey. So was that what it was like for you? Did you feel like you got all your questions answered about becoming a coach, running a business, the Enneagram? Or did you feel like you didn't get all that answered, but what you did get was the assurance that God is leading you, God is going to be with you, so you just have to take that step?
Yeah, it really was a step of faith. And I
Yeah.
think ultimately, he meets us in that. If we're seeking after the Lord and we're asking him and we goof up, if there's grace to cover horrible sin, surely there's grace to cover our goof and a poor decision that was made out of the best intentions. And I think resting in that, helped give me the confidence
Yes.
of choosing it. And then honestly, I've found the Enneagram limitations to be like huge. Like the boundary is huge, that whole like wide space and the wide boundary lines, and using the Enneagram has been more opening and created more opportunities than limitations in the end for me, which is, that's like God, right? And you go in thinking this because that's my default thinking of limitations and being afraid of it, and actually going with the limitations, it's better quality. It's a better life. So.
I was reminded just now as you were talking of another one of my favorite quotes, and as a type 6, it's brought me a lot of comfort. And Anne Lamott said it. I think Richard Rohr said it as well in his own words. But to paraphrase, the opposite of faith is not doubt. The opposite of faith is certainty. So, if you have all the certainty about the future and about the destination and about what it's going to be like to pursue your dreams, if that's becoming an Enneagram coach, if you have all the certainty and all the questions answered, you don't need faith. What do you have to trust God for if you're not afraid of anything? And which has been such a comfort to me as a type 6 with a lot of fear, who has grown up shaming my fear. And part of the gift that God's given me through the Enneagram is to understand that it's okay to be afraid. And if you're not afraid, you're not living, so, and you're not risking if you're not afraid. And certainly if God's calling you to do something, or if he's putting a dream in your heart to do something like become an Enneagram coach or whatever that might be, you're going to have to take some risks. And there's going to be a lot of uncertainty, and there's going to be some unknowns, and there's going to be some unknowns of like, you don't even know what you don't know yet.
So true.
and so that the only way to navigate through the self-doubt and the imposter syndrome, which will certainly try to hold you back from taking that risk, it's going to try to protect you from taking that risk. The only way to move forward with that is, and it's not a spiritual over spiritualization, it's to trust God with what you don't have certainty about. And that's the place where faith comes alive. You guys are amazing, and this is so helpful for me just to hear how you have courageously moved forward, and still every day are having. It's not like you've arrived. I mean, none of us has arrived, right? So you're still having to exercise this faith and this courage to move forward through these limiting beliefs, to continue to show up to life and show up to your relationships and your calling, and continue to do these things. Where I want to shift gears is I want to talk about what's been the reward of having walked through all these fears. There's this quote I've used in the last 2 episodes, and I'm unashamedly going to use it again. It's this quote from Joseph Campbell that Brene Brown has made popular. But the quote is, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." So it's this image of you're standing, on the edge of this cave. You're standing right outside of this cave, and inside there's, again, tons of uncertainty. It's dark. You don't know what is 5-10 steps inside that cave. You don't know what twists and turns await. You don't know what challenges lie ahead. You just have a lot of uncertainty. But what you do know is that there's something inside that cave that you want, and that you're being led to pursue. And there's a desire you have, but you have to walk through that cave and through your fear in order to get it. So the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. And a lot of that, the question is, what's the treasure you guys have discovered in Enneagram coaching? What's the treasure you discovered as you've walked through all these limiting beliefs to pursue this? What's the treasure in the cave that's made it all worth it all for you? Elizabeth, What about you?
Yeah, one thing, as a social 6, I think it's always interesting to hear people's understanding of the social subtypes, because when it comes to 6, yes, we want the community, but there's still the fear of meeting new people.
Right.
And there's still the fear of joining in a new community. And that's been something that as a coach, I'm slowly conquering, is like, well, I have to talk to somebody new that I've never talked to in my entire life before. And I'm getting so much better at that. And I'm finding that I really, truly enjoy it. I've always enjoyed it. I've just let the fear be so overwhelming. But I love to hear what makes people tick. I love to hear what makes people hurt, what makes them joyful. And that's something that you don't always get to do when you're meeting new people, just in general. And, in your everyday life, it tends to be very surface level relationships. And there's no surface level about coaching with somebody. You
Right.
get real deep real fast. And that's been just so nice to just be entrusted with that as a coach, and know that I can carry that for someone when they really need it.
Yeah, that's so true. You really get a front row seat at, seeing people's lives transform, seeing the light bulb come on, seeing the awareness happen in real time, and that's definitely massive treasure. Yeah. Joe, what about you?
I've got all these like things written in front of me. It's very 5, beautiful mind down where I am, even though it's very clean behind me. There's this, I did some coaching training over the last year, and I don't know, it probably came from that, but it says, my job is to imagine transformation for my client. And when we coach and when we teach the Enneagram, but coach the client, there's these moments that come up where you just pause and you see people find themselves in a new way. And that's just so rewarding.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crying that happens in coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of my favorite questions is like, what's at stake for you right now? Like, how do you want to grow, and what tools and resources can we use to help you get where you want to go? And then the Enneagram starts to provide some of that internal language that we all need to articulate what's happening in the moment. And then my job as a coach is just to just affirm, acknowledge, champion the person, and see transformation happen. And it's so rewarding, because you truly help people become the best version of themselves.
Yes.
And it's been transformational in my life with coaches who have coached me, and then all that head trash seems to go away, right? When you realize you've had this impact on a person who is going to be different because of the work you've been able to do with them, and you get paid to do it, which is like a bonus.
Win-win.
Yeah.
My job is to imagine transformation for my client. That's a new sticky note that's going to be on my desk as well. So thanks for that, Joe. I love that. I also just think it's funny. You said, you mentioned there's a lot of crying in coaching, and there is, and Amy, I don't know as a 7 how you feel about that, but there can be, and I remember years ago hearing someone say something about, I don't like making people cry as a coach, and the response was, you don't make anybody cry. You provide a safe space where they can cry. You provide a safe place where they can take off the mask and tell the truth about their life. You provide a safe place where they can be vulnerable. You provide a safe place where they can actually get in touch with themselves and begin to have the awareness, which of course the Enneagram is just a profound tool in all of that. But that's the treasure, man. That's the reward. I love that, Joe. Amy, what about you? What's the treasure?
Yeah, this was all so good. And I would speak to the crying and say, I'm actually great with the crying, because
That doesn't surprise me, Amy, at all. It doesn't surprise me at all.
I actually cry with my clients, which sometimes causes them to cry more, but I'm okay with it because I know it's going to end. Like, it's going to be 30 seconds and then we'll be okay.
Yeah.
But
you can cry, but only for 30 seconds.
I don't put a time limit.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I don't know, the thing that comes to my mind when I think about my clients is this puzzle. And I'm getting to help them put the pieces together to their story. And every time those pieces click, it's that aha moment, right? Or something, oh, wow. And getting to help them put that together. And I really didn't, I just like guided them, right? And like, hey, have you tried this piece? Oh, look, maybe it's connected to this piece. And then they put it together and they have these reports of, I tried this thing. It seems so simple. I didn't know it'd be so transformational. And to celebrate the wins, is that too surprising, right? But to be able to celebrate and go, you're doing it. Oh my gosh. Like, go take your kids out for ice cream. Like, you guys, like, you did that. And go buy that pair of shoes, or I don't know, I just hypothetically, but just even being able to sit there with them and call out the celebration and see how it's all fitting together. Ultimately, again, not to spiritualize it, but to see what the God story is that he has been writing in their lives. And you get to point to that and go, look at how the Lord has led you to this point, and look at what he's doing. And to see the beauty of that and how he has been there all along, working behind the scenes, walking right along beside you. And then to make that connection to the Lord in a deeper way is like, man, it's just such a gift.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's great, Amy. I love those, what the treasure is for you. I mean, seeing those dots connect for people is so contagious. I mean, it never, ever gets old. And celebrating with people is such a joy and such a gift to be able to, you're right, celebrate those milestones, help people celebrate. Some Enneagram types don't really stick around for the confetti to fall. And so that's a huge gift that type 7 coaches bring, is helping people acknowledge and celebrate what they need to celebrate. I mean, it's not Enneagram coaching is not all focusing on growth points, like places where you need to grow. It's also celebrating the growth, right?
Amen.
And honoring the gifts in people. And that's as important, if not more important. So who was it there's like the rule of thumb that's like, for every criticism you need 10 affirmations or something. So man, what a gift, type 7 coaches are, or any coach who leans into that, affirming your clients and speaking good news over them, and reminding them who they really are and how gifted and valuable they really are, and celebrating their God's grace in their life and their wins and their growth. And man, that's treasure. Yeah, that makes it all worth it. That's a ton of fun. That's a ton of fun. Well, I think the last question I want to ask is, I'd love to hear from each of you. What would you, if you have a moment right here, right now on the podcast, to speak to our audience. And if anyone is thinking about, I kind of want to become an Enneagram coach, and I would like to also partner with people on their journey toward becoming their best self. And I would like to see more and more people not be held back by imposter syndrome. And I want people to emerge. For those who are listening, but whose own head trash may be holding them back from becoming an Enneagram coach, I'd love to hear what would you say if you would say a couple of words to them. How would you encourage them? Joe, why don't you jump in first?
You can't lead people somewhere you haven't gone yourself. So call one of us and let's get on the line for a coaching session.
Yes,
because once you're trained and you know what to do, you can really unlock what may be holding someone back. Yes. And often coaching is about career and life vocation questions. And so I would encourage you to hit one of the three of us up and say, hey, let's just get on for a call and experience it, and then go, wow, I could do that too. And, as a 5, I researched at least 6 different places to get trained in the Enneagram. And it's not necessarily about the information. It's about the risk to just do it.
Man, great word, Joe. Yeah, find a coach. Absolutely. Amy, what about you?
Well, in the opposite manner, I didn't know there was other coaching certification programs out there, so I just jumped all in. And I would echo of making sure that you've experienced the transformation, because that is what will be contagious. That will be that's really your best sales opportunity there. Selling point is that you can tell the stories and you can example the change that you've experienced. But if I kind of go back to one of those things of, if you're praying about it and you think the Lord is nudging you that way, take that step of faith. He's gonna catch you either way you fall. And then just a word of advice to the 7s who want fast and want it big, and you want your 20 clients a month right away. Take Elizabeth's advice and be good with growing slow, because it's good to take time to amass the information and marinate it in it a little bit and really get oriented before you just charge full steam ahead. So
great word, Amy. Great word. Elizabeth, you want to close us out?
Yeah, one of my favorite verses to use for anybody is Philippians 1:6, that says that God, who began the good work within you, will continue his work until it is finally finished on the day when Christ Jesus returns. And I think the message here is twofold for us. Whether you're considering becoming an Enneagram coach or just any step in your life, is one, God is doing a good work in you. It's not up to you about what you do, that he's doing in you. He's already working in your life and loving every minute of it. And 2, he's not done yet. So it doesn't have to come out perfectly. He's not even going to try to be done with you until Christ Jesus returns. And so to think that you have to have it all figured out right now is giving yourself more credit and taking away some of the credit from the Lord, in my opinion. So give him the chance to do the work in you that he's promising he's doing right now.
Wow. Great word to end on. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And thank you, all 3 of you, Elizabeth, Joe, Amy, thank you so much for joining us today. This has really served me, and I know this is going to serve our listeners and certainly anyone who is considering possibly becoming a coach as well. And to those of you listening and watching, if you're interested in becoming an Enneagram coach and helping lead others on the journey of moving away from the imposter self, the little child in armor that's shooting arrows at other people's attempts to live. If you want to help people move out of that and through that imposter self into becoming their true and best self using the tool of the Enneagram, our certification course will be opening for enrollment June 21st through the 28th. It'll close on the 28th at midnight. And like all coaches who have gone before you, as you've heard today with Elizabeth and Amy and Joe, you'll have to walk through some of your own stuff to do it, some of your own head trash, some of your own limiting beliefs. You'll have to walk through that in order to become a coach, but there is treasure in the cave that you fear. So thank you for tuning in to this episode, and we'll see you next week. And remember, the Enneagram reveals your need for Jesus, not your need to work harder. It is only the gospel that transforms you. Thank you for joining us.